some questions that came to me via email. The first one was the question about the tool to support rotational release. So that's the thing that can help you grip onto the areas. That is called DICEM. And I'll look it up again, but it is in the notes from the table of contents with a link to that webpage. It is DICEM, D-Y-C-E-M hyphen NS, meaning noslip.com. So this is their website, and then you can also get a free sample. So that is something to take a look at. All right.
Okay. I'm sorry, which product is that?
DICEM, it's to hold, somebody had asked me about rotational release and to grip. And so this is like a gripping, it's almost like, it kind of looks like a TheraBand, but it's very kind of tacky, and it helps open things. You can read about it.
Okay.
But yeah, for rotational release, somebody was asking that question. So I'm going to go back to
every time before I retape my big toe, I do the releases, rotational as well as the CCR. Over time, my sensitivity actually increased. I have considerable more spots at the moment that are sensitive than I had in the beginning. And I wanted to ask if this is a normal thing that can happen, or if we need to review my technique and from releasing and taping, if I might do something wrong.
You know what you might want to do? You might want to give the metatarsals a break for maybe a week and then go back to it. And I was going to suggest that to a couple of other people who are having still some real severe sensitivity, and also who have pretty severe bunions. Remember, I've said this before, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, sometimes giving yourself rest will make up for it in the long run. There are times to kind of come out running, and then there are times to kind of take it slow and or rest. And if your body is really having some extreme sensitivity, or if you're having abnormal pain or that kind of thing, give yourself a break, because sometimes you just need a few days off and get back to it. I assure you that your feet will not go back to the way they were. I promise you. They will not. Like I said, maybe give it a little bit of time and then come back to doing it. So give yourself maybe 3 days, 5 days off from the metatarsals and or the big toe, and concentrate on the tarsals and the lower leg. Continue with the taping though. Then also the cuneiform, navicular, and the cuboids don't seem to move at all when you're doing rotational release. They're very, very solid, first of all. Number one. Number two, I only suggested doing rotational release on the outside bones. So that's going to be the medial cuneiform and the cuboid. Okay, so the medial cuneiform is in line with the first metatarsal, in between first and second, and then the cuboid is in line with fourth and fifth, the big bone. Behind the medial cuneiform is the navicular. That one you could probably try rotational release on also. But the other ones are inside, and I don't think you're going to have much success. They're just too tiny. Truthfully, I never really thought, like, this is the first time that I'm thinking about even doing it on the tarsals, but theoretically you can do rotational release on anything, just like you can do the CCR on anything. Oh yeah, so whenever I retape the X and the correctional tape for the big toe, on the big toe, more sensitive spaces, right. Okay, so then we talked about that too. Yeah, like I said, I would give it a little bit more time. Also, remember that to increase mobility or flexibility, you need to have stability. And the way that we get stability is through that diagonal type of force. So again, I think you're still doing X marks the bunion, and that's a good idea to go ahead and do that, as well as make sure that you're taping the FHB, which is a stabilizing muscle.
Okay.
And then, the big toe down and the big toe repositioning. Any questions? No? Okay, no one reminded me to hit record. In the chat notes, I said, remind me to hit record so I don't forget, and I did. So how did you find the lesson from last week? Did anybody watch the edited version that I did the next day? By any chance? You did. Can I unmute you, Doretta? Yeah, okay, great. And I don't know why you're not unmuting. There you go.
I had to push a button.
Yes, okay. So I thought it came out pretty good. What did you think?
I loved it. And I
Yeah?
love that recap. And I think going forward in your next classes, you'll be able to reuse it.
Yeah, so did you like it better than what I've been doing with the like the editing of this?
It's hard to just, yes and no. There was a lot of areas that we covered in class that wasn't covered.
Yeah,
So
I get it, yeah. Because it was kind of easier for me to do it that way. I had it was a little bit easier, and I could be very specific, and the views were very good. That's what I liked about it.
mhm.
So yeah, if anybody else has feedback, let me know on that, because it's just an option to make it better. The other thing I wanted to say is that my assistant has sent you the links for weeks 5 and 6 today. So you guys should have gotten that. And then there will be better descriptions for the tarsal release, for the comprehensive core in particular, for the tarsal bones that we did the other day. So they'll be a little bit more specific, and they're a little bit more formal. And again, you'll have good views of that. Okay, so we're going to get into, I think some people watched the video. Some people even sent me videos, actually. And I think I'm going to share my screen and start with one of them. And what's really cool is if you send me videos, I can kind of go in slow motion. So I like that. And we can look at some alignment issues. When you go ahead and look at your alignment, you're looking at your kneecap, and you're looking at a bone underneath your kneecap called your tibial tubercle, and that's actually where your quadriceps tendon attaches, your patella tendon attaches to that little bump on the bone there. And that bone should really track over the second toe, okay? So when you're bending, that's where it should be going. It should be going planar. It's not real good for the knee to rotate. It can rotate, and it does rotate a little bit, but its function, I mean, if you look at the alignment of the kneecap, it's literally bone on bone this way, and it doesn't want to do this. It's not very stable in these directions, so you really want to keep it straight forward and back, hinge-like as much as possible. And again, there's some little bit of motion in rotation, but it's those rotary types of motions that will cause ACL tears and that kind of thing. Now, that all being said, we always want to have a little bit of give in our connective tissues, which is why something like rotational release is going to be really powerful for those of you who have misalignments or malalignments in the lower leg and the thigh. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and share a video, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So here's a video, and I'm just going to go in the forward motion here. So when we come forward to watch this person take a step, even when you see that foot kind of bend, you see like the unevenness in the crease? It's very creased on the inside versus the outside. So what I was talking about is like right in this area right here, it's thicker than on the outside, right? So a big crease here, not so big a crease there. Oops. Okay. So going back, we can watch again. I'm just going to delete. Okay. So here's where the bigger bunion is. You can see that bunion. And what's interesting is that the weight of her foot is really on the outside of her foot. And when she goes to step forward, we can see, so you see how she kind of comes up and it's not straight on with that heel. So she's kind of deviated on this outside part here. If I can, again, try to draw right over here. And when she comes up a little bit higher on it, see, with her push-off, there's a lot of irritation onto that bunion area. And then the knee is deviating inward a little bit. So that's the common knee for people who have like a walking bunion. Okay, so those are the ones who the bunion gets irritated with walking because there's pressure on it because of alignment. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at the alignment in our lower leg and also our knee. And what we can do is, if we're not certain about how it looks with regard to the patella and the tibial tubercle coming over the knee, what we can just do is we'll just go ahead and release it like we would any other connective tissue. So what do we do for connective tissue, guys? We do rotational release, and then we do the CCR. So we have two bones in the lower leg. So this is the back of the foot, and here is the tibia on, this is the arch side of the foot, and the fibula is on the pinky side of the foot, on the outside of the foot. Now, the fibula is really important because remember that flexor hallucis longus? That attaches to the fibula and goes to the big toe. And also another muscle that I'm pretty infatuated with called the fibularis longus, which from the original bunion solution, that attaches to the fibula also. And then there are some muscles that are important that attach to the tibia. Tibialis posterior in particular attaches to the medial cuneiform, I believe, also. So there are some important attachment points on both of these bones. And also they're going to influence that bump where the patella tendon attaches is actually also on the tibia. And that is at the top of it. It's called the tibial tubercle. So that is also another reason why it's kind of important with regard to that. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start at the base of both of those areas of the fibula and the tibia. And they're easy to identify because those are your ankle bones. They're also called the malleoli. Okay, so the bumps on the ankles. And so then what we'll do is we're just going to do the rotational release, both directions, and work our way up the leg until we go ahead and hit the knee. And then we can also work on the kneecap a little bit, and then we'll get into the femur bone, which is only one bone. And then there are some muscles there that are also influential with regard to that. So we'll go ahead and take a look at those types of things as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to a different camera. So here's my tibial tubercle. Okay. And when I go ahead and come forward, I should go over my second toe. And when I do, I kind of come through here. You guys see that? So my alignment does not seem that wonderful either. So what do I want to do? I kind of want to get this part over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down ankle bones, which I'm going to make near my ankle bone. So this is of my tibia, and this is the bottom of my fibula. And remember, the talus is in between there. So kind of see a little bit better. Do is I'm in through taking my knuckles and putting them behind these malleoli, and my thumbs go crisscross in front, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate inward. I can rotate outward. And when I go and I find the, and then I can just go ahead and bend the end Now I can rotate to the other direction and go ahead and bend and straighten, or I could go side to side, or I could lift up my toes. Those are options. I could also, if I was in a different position, I could go into standing. Okay? Then I'm going to come up a little bit higher. And again, keep my hands wrapped. And I'm going to go to the outside and then move. And then go to the inside and move. And now I'm going to go up a little bit higher and rotate inward and go and go. And then move up and up. And you kind of get the idea on that. So anywhere along this area, again, where I feel tension or pain, which I'm starting to a little bit, right in this area, then I'm going to go ahead and hold it. I can either stabilize with my tongue or tongue on the roof of the mouth. Oh boy, that hurts. So for me, it's interesting, the rotation outward is what is tender versus inward. So I'm just going to kind of go through that a little bit more. So let's reassess. So here is my tubercle. And again, that alignment actually is better. So it has to, again, we're going to go ahead and do our rotational release. And then what do? We do our comprehensive core. The core, this is big tissue. I don't need to use a marble, and I don't need to, but I can use a ball. Okay, so medium-sized ball like a tennis ball or golf ball, or a bigger super bounce. So now, with the ball, right, you go around your bony contours. So again, down here, I could use something small, but as I get into above the ankle, I'm going to use my ball. I'll go around, find my tender direction, stabilize, and then move. Roll it. And again, I could either go around this way or just go up. And I would recommend going up and down since the bones go up and down for comprehensive core. Rotational release, we start at the bottom and then we go up. So then just like anything else, to push against here can be challenging. So you could also go into a lying down position for the back where you put this underneath, and then if you have the flexibility to push on top where the ball is underneath you, just like the marble would be underneath the foot, and then you move about the top and stabilize and then move, foot up and down. So you can get a better release down the back of the calf in particular, where there are a lot of connective tissues that, I mean, so many people have tight calves, including myself. So this is a much more beneficial position to really address those connective tissue structures underneath, on the underside of the lower leg and calf. Much better position. So you get the ball underneath, you move about it, you stabilize, and then you would move your foot up and down. Okay? So that rotational release core for the lower leg. Now, individuals who have with the kneecap, the patella, can you see there, Glenn, pretty good? Yeah? Okay, good. So I'm just going to draw around that again, trace it. Okay. So it's kind of almost heart-shaped. That's about it. Oddly shaped bone. But what you want to do here is you can take the bone and you just want to move the kneecap to the outside, to the inside, down, and up. And you kind of rotate it both directions. So again, DICEM would probably be really good here. Then you find your restriction point and you just go ahead and for the kneecap. And if you have a kneecap that dislocates, I would be very, very, very careful when you do this. Okay? So you want to have a kind of a stable kneecap. All right? And then lastly, we'll get into the thigh. And for that, again, we will just start from the bottom, grab around, and do our rotation as we move up the thigh. So again, I'm going to grab around and go around to the right and grab around to the left. Find any restriction and then just bend and straighten. Or I could go side to side, or I could go up and down. Okay? And then I would just move up, grab onto the tissues, and again, however you need to get your grip. So if you notice, I started here, and then I felt like I needed to move a little bit more, change my grip a little bit, find my tender spot, and move. And then with regard to the thigh, comprehensive core is going to be the same as it was for the lower leg, where you're just going to go ahead and come in and find your tender spot, stabilize, and move. When you are on the underside of the foot, you can do the same thing. Sorry, underside of the thigh, you can do the same thing. Does anybody know what a foam roller is? Yeah, anybody familiar with a foam roller? A foam roller is a dense piece of styrofoam, and a lot of people use that to work on the thigh muscles because this ball, I'm not getting really good advantage underneath, and probably could use something a little bit bigger and thicker. Questions on that? So now I'm going to move on to exercise. And what we're going to do here, there are a couple of really good exercises. Some of them you've seen before, others of them you have not. But one in particular, stabilizing the big toe. Okay, and you can either hold it down or hold the bunion straight. So for those people who are having like a push-off problem, and then lifting up and down. So keeping that toe aligned and lifting the heel up and down. Let me go ahead and show it to you from the side. So you can align here and then just lift up and down. Or you could also take a broom handle or the bottom of a cane, put it on top of your toe, like so, and then lift the heel, lift that knee up and down. Okay? So you're getting that big toe down. This is actually, some of you guys might want to try this for your metatarsals with this nice big mechanical advantage here, and then going ahead and moving. This is very functional. And functional means it mimics walking really good. So those of you who have significant bunions in standing and walking, I would give this a shot. Okay? So the other thing that you can do if you have a cane available is you can stick the J part of the cane underneath, and again, you kind of move up and down about that. Other exercises, spreading of the toes. Okay, so getting those toes spread. Some of you are really excited because now you can do this. You never could before. But again, you're just going to splay the toes as wide as possible. What you notice is that I'm moving my hands, where there's a connection between your hands and your foot. So moving the hands can help initiate moving the foot. Pressing the big toe down and lifting the 4 other toes. Really, really, really good exercise. So these are some things that you can do at the like when you're standing in line waiting at the grocery store. This is something when I drive my car, I actually drive it with my big toe pressing because I'm a big fan of that. And you know, again, that's really what saved me from knee surgery was getting weight into that big toe, which I realized I hadn't been doing for a number of years. And then the other one that I really, 2 more exercises I really like. One is called piano toes. So you press down each toe at a time, and then you go in reverse. This is easier for me than the other way. Yeah. So again, kind of, yeah, going down and then going out, going down and going out. And you guys, these are such great balance exercises. I can't even begin to tell you, okay? And then lastly, pushing the big toes together, the ankles and the big toes together, and maybe lifting 4 other toes and then bending and straightening. Okay. All right. Now, another thing that I thought of in this position for you guys who are working on tarsals, this broom handle thing is really good also. That you have really good mechanical advantage. Stabilization is a little bit tough. You can use your other foot. And then you can go ahead and lift up and down, or you can do side to side. So you pretend that you're standing on the face of a clock. And so here I am in the middle. My feet are glued to the ground, and I'm going to bring my body forward over to 12, around to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm keeping my feet down, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then you can go back around 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 12. So foot clock. And one new exercise that I really like as well is thinking about a foot clock, right? So you're thinking about standing on the face of a clock. You're going to lift your toes up, okay? And then what I want you to do is think about taking the force, okay, of your foot going from on the ground from 11 to 5. Okay, pulling the first metatarsal toward the cuboid. Remember, the cuboid's on the opposite side. And if you remember, the first metatarsal and cuboid are the attachment points for the flexor hallucis brevis. Actually, I stand corrected. It's the hallux and the cuboid. So you can get the hallux down and go from 11 to 5 on your imaginary clock. So the force in my foot is literally going from here to right about there on the underside of the foot. So again, big toe is down, and I can put as much, I can do single leg stance and try to really pull across from the toe across to the outside back of the foot. So I could either do it in mostly weight bearing or single leg stance with that pull to try to get the activation of that flexor.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do we do the CCR on the kneecap?
Yes. Do you do the CCR on the kneecap?
Okay.
I don't know. I guess you can a little bit, but I would say if you have a kneecap that tracks funny, then I would. And I would use a pencil eraser head and just go around the circumference of the kneecap. But yeah, the rotation is really good to just give nice little play in the kneecap as well. Anybody else? All right. So I've pretty much covered almost everything here. I think we have time. So I think what I want to do, maybe would it be helpful to, does anybody want me to go over anything in particular? Because I'm thinking about going through the tarsals again. Yeah, no, maybe?
But one thing that I have a little challenge with is how much do I pull the tape when I'm taping?
Okay.
I'm always insecure if I'm doing it too less and it doesn't do much, or if I'm
Right. Okay, so when you're taping for position or alignment, that's like the reinforcement tape, that you can pull maximally, right? That being said, if you're pulling maximally, it might hurt.
Okay.
So, here's the thing. If you pull it maximally and it hurts, what do? Just take off the tape and retape it, right? So from that standpoint, that would be your guideline. With regard to when you're taping for facilitation, okay, so like when you're taping for the flexor hallucis brevis or the abductor hallucis, okay, that you're going to unroll the tape and lie it down and bring it just, without any pull, really for the first, like, 3/4, between 1/2 and 3/4, and then the last quarter or last half, you're going to pull it to the other attachment point. So that's why we kind of measure and we do the conversion. That's why that's set up that way. Okay?
So you cut out a little bit in between. Let me just repeat what I understood. So about 3/4, I just lay it down, and then the last.
And then you pull the last. Yeah, it's like somewhere between 1/2 and 3/4 that you would go ahead and start to create your pull at the end. Yep. Okay.
Okay. So the X is a stabilizing one. I can pull.
The X is more of a stabilized. That one can go maximally because you're not really realigning anything with that. That is just a maximal pull for sure. Yeah.
How about the toe down? I don't have how many.
The toe down. Yeah, that one you're going to want to try to get a bend in the bone, in the joint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the interhallux joint. So, I don't usually do 100%. I usually do about 80.
Okay.
That one, if I just lay it down, I don't do, the repositioning. Again, the repositioning is where you get into a little bit of funkiness where you're going to, you might have a throbbing pain. But big toe down, typically no. X marks the bunion, no, not so much. It's the positional ones that will, get you going.
Okay.
I think what we could do now too is go through the fact that you can also apply tape to the tarsals. Okay, as far as a repositioning is concerned. So for example, on the video that I showed you earlier, remember her 5th metatarsal was kind of dropping, okay, when she was stepping off. So you can take a piece of tape, Kinesio or Luco, and what you can do is just apply it Could you grab my skeleton? It's in the closet. I had skeletons in my closet. I always wanted to say that, right? Literally. So you could just take like a small piece of tape, right? And if that metatarsal is dropped on the fifth side, you just basically take your tape and you just pull it back up. So that's something that you can do. And then also people who have narrow tarsals or navicular that goes down, for example, you can just tape that navicular up. And also, take the piece of tape on the tarsal bone and pull it into the direction you want to go. And that would be a maximal pull also, because that's a repositioning. And then there's also actually repositioning for the calcaneus. So if the calcaneus, again, if it deviates outward or inward, I encourage you to take a piece of tape and bring it from the outside to the inside on the calcaneus. Calcaneus is a big bone, so I would not cut the kinesio tape in half. I'd keep it the normal width, but bring that around that way or the opposite. And then there's even, for people who have a talus that comes out, I even have a taping technique for that, where you just take the piece of tape and you basically bring it underneath here and then crisscross it around the other side to kind of hold it in. So you're really, again, kind of limited, you're really unlimited by your or only limited by your creativity. And the other thing is that, remember, some of you have asked, okay, well, where do I press to reshape my foot? And again, I always go back to pretend you're a sculptor. And what bone would you take and where would you put it? And that oftentimes will tell you where to go with it. So again, if you're looking at, I might just switch this to my foot because I got some interesting things going on. I don't have bunions, but I do have an oddly shaped foot. Probably because when I was a baby, they put me in those braces. It was when you were supposed to not have flat feet, so everybody got put in these braces that were in your crib and kind of like a medieval torture device. But my toes literally like kind of turn inward, and I do have higher arches, and I do, I have a history of ankle sprains and that kind of thing. So, I am not without pathology to the foot. So what I will show you is kind of where I would go on my foot to kind of reference what we're talking about. And I think the tracings are indicative of that also. In the tracing, where do you dip in? Where do you need to widen the foot to give it more support? Those kinds of things. And I think for many of you guys, it is going to be in that first and second row of tarsal bones. Because again, there's no one out there really working on these guys. And I'm hoping that a lot of you are feeling a difference in your walking and balance. Is anybody feeling a difference in walking and balance? Yes, no, maybe?
I am.
Yes.
And especially in the knee.
Yes, I think you had reached out to me and mentioned that too. And I have I've said many times that every knee problem is a foot problem. Because if we don't have mobility in the foot, then we're going to get that mobility somehow. The body will get the job done. It just doesn't care how it does it. And oftentimes that lack of mobility in the foot will be compensated for by an increase in mobility in the knee. And the knee is much more stable. So that's where you get pain. Remember, pain is because something moves too much, not too little. And that's why braces are often helpful. Okay, so I just have, 4
I have a
minutes.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you go over again to check out the alignment with the knee and the toe?
Sure.
Because I've been trying it and I'm not quite sure where I am.
Gotcha. All right, you know, and I just kind of thought of a new way to do this that might be, make it a little bit easier to see. So I'm just going to switch my camera and go back, and then this might help everybody a little bit more. So if you have your tape measure, what you can do is go ahead and take it to from this point right here, the tibial tubercle, and kind of hang it down. And when you come forward, kind of see where your alignment comes to. And again, yeah, now this is a little bit better. It looks to me like it is better in line with that second toe. The other thing that you can do is film yourself or watch yourself in the mirror when you're doing it. So again, this is where I would start and just go ahead and start my rotational release and really kind of grab into those ankle bones, those malleoli, and then work my way up. But again, you see this toe is really deviated, and I don't have a lot of space in between these two toes. I mean, this is pretty smart right here, so that's where my cross is to there. But if you look from the top, you see how I indent right here? Like my foot completely indents on this side. So this is the top that I'm going to need to work. Maybe it's this guy right here. I'm not really sure. I know this is narrow. So if I take my piece of tape to make this wider, I would take it from here, start my piece, and then wrap it around right where that indentation is. All right, so if I take that, so I would just take my tape, here's a nice perfect piece of tape, take it off and go from here, right, to wrap it and try to pull it out laterally. I could pull it out laterally from the bottom too, because again, I'm just trying to create width here. I'm not trying to my force is really out and not down to try to increase space there or reinforce that space that I just created. One last thing about doing the comprehensive core with regard to standing is that you can go ahead and really try this. I would encourage you guys to try this with a long broom handle or with a cane. And what you can do is if it's too tender on top, is you can pat it with a washcloth. Okay? And give that a try also. The other thing is that what I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking, or I've chosen to, I skip next week, and I think actually skip the week after because that's the 4th of July, and do our last live class on July 10th, that Wednesday. So that way, you guys have a couple of weeks to review the information that we're going through because we've gone through all of the class stuff, and then you'll have a few weeks to integrate, and then I think it'd be a really good idea for us to reconvene in a few weeks. Would be great. So would you be able to put a summary together of EB? What's EB? Everything. Is that some sort of new term? A summary of everything, sure. Yeah, absolutely. No worries. Like Easter bunny? Like case of mine. Yeah, I could put together a summary of everything for sure. It's pretty clear in my mind, but I've done this a number of times. And again, if you review this and go through the class, you'll become an expert the more times that you see it or do it. And rather than keep, creating more material, I think we've covered pretty much everything. And at that point, what's really nice about it is that the concepts are the same. So you can use the comprehensive tour on any part of the body. Like I said, you could use rotational release on any part of the body. The concepts are the same. It's just how to address it. And sometimes that just, takes practice and then it clicks in your head. So Suzanne raised her hand. So Suzanne, let me unmute you. Okay, I think you have to unmute yourself. Oh no, here you are. Question.
I'm okay. No question. Sorry, I did it by
Oh,
mistake.
you raised your hand by mistake. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You don't want to say anything?
No, thank
Okay.
you. Thanks for everything.
All right. All right, guys. So I will then see you in 2 weeks, but that does not mean that I cannot answer questions. And it might mean also that I come, on an impromptu live if I feel like people are getting caught up. But the last, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that it went harder to easier. Would that be accurate? Was it really like technical in the beginning and now it's kind of easier? Because what I'm feeling is that, we were working with such little joints, that were really, really, really complicated and technical and a lot of tissues and everything else. And now at the end, I feel like, rotational release of the calf, it's no sweat, right?
Mm-hmm.
No? All right, maybe it's no sweat for me. All right, I'm going over time, so I'm going to say goodnight. And I'll get this up for you guys ASAP.